Hey, it's the podcast guy.
Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast.
And there it is! Sutton United of the GM Vauxhall Conference have put out First Division Coventry City, winners of the FA Cup themselves less than 2 years ago. And what a moment to enjoy for the fans of this Surrey side. They've had their moments before, but never one like this. But the whistle goes down. Delight for Sutton United. Sutton United, the National League, are through to the last 16 of the FA Cup. No longer English football's perennial non-league club. A 123-year crescendo reaches a new peak for Sutton United, who are promoted to the Football League for the first time.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Sutton United Talk Time on Podcasts. I've got a full panel this evening, and we use the word panel as well. I like that. I've got joining me again is Will. Hello, Will. How are you?
Hello. Thank you. I'm good. Thank you very much.
Very good. Also, we've got Andy back again. Hello, Andy.
Good evening.
Hello, and Claire. Hello, Claire.
Evening all.
Hello. So we're all nice and happy. We had a nice, happy day yesterday. Great show. Thanks for your time, guys. Yeah, difficult. Kind of the scene was set, I think, on Friday night. Listening to Matt's pre-match lists of injuries. I'm not sure anyone listened to the full hour or so of the injury update, but. How did you sort of feel when you saw the lineup? We'll start with you, Claire, since the intros were last. So you sort of.
I mean, it was kind of to be expected, wasn't it? Really, given everything that you know about kind of our extra long injury list at the moment. So I think you just kind of hope that you're going to make the best of a bad situation.
Yeah.
And that's kind of all that we could hope for, really. I didn't have high levels of optimism, but I was just keeping my fingers crossed for best of a bad situation, shall I say.
Well, I thought I was going to be really clever in the morning. I was going to do a little poll and right, so who do we think is going to be our centre-back pairing? Is it going to be Joe and Louis or Louis and Joe? And then just as I was about to hit send, I thought, because this is where Matt buggers me up and sticks Easty in the middle at the back there and completely ruins my fun. But Andy, I know we spoke just before the game. What were you thinking for everyone else?
Lineup was exactly as I expected it to be. That's the thing about Matt. Matt, you know what team he's going to pick. The only two variables would have been, was Hart going to start ahead of Milsom or was Thomas going to start ahead of Killian? Apart from that, it was exactly how we expected it to be.
Yeah.
No changes.
And Will, yourself, similar?
Again, as Andy said, you expect exactly that. And there's not really else. You can't really do much with the squad at the minute. So,
yeah, there's not much to go. And I think it's the same as the subs. I think you might mention that on the forum, Andy, is like, who's going to come on and make the changes? It is very much like for like. So it is just a matter of, we just got to get through these next sort of 4 to 6 weeks when we start getting people back again. I did note he said all the January transfer window, which made me chuckle because I was like, who? Who are we going to get? I mean, there might be a loan or two around, but I know everyone's got great expectations of Dave coming back to us to rescue us, but he was in the Peterborough side and his confidence is going to be shot anyway. Andy, you're shaking your head. Go on.
Well, it's kind of people adding 2 and 2 together and making 27,000. Just because David Ajiboye has turned up at the ground, it doesn't mean he's going to come here on loan. And some people have presumed that's going to happen. It might happen. Who knows? But, he's got a lot of mates here. Last week, he wasn't playing. He come down to see his mates. That's all it was. It's not, people read too much into things when it's something they really want to happen. It's just being realistic. There is a chance of him coming here. I'm sure there is. But if he's going to start playing for Peterborough, then there's going to be no chance of him coming here. And he's started to play again. So
exactly. And someone was saying they thought they saw Tants around as well, which would be a similar thing. 'Cause I think he was injured at Millwall, so be a similar thing. I mean, Matt said himself that about a week after Dave did his transfer, he then came down to look at the new training ground. That we haven't sold in the last week, by the way. So,
Well, the one we don't know.
Yeah, well, maybe there's no communication on the club on it. I'll be honest, it's terrible communication coming out.
I think it's also worth remembering that we're about to go into an international break, so there may be some other faces that appear in the next few weeks around about because, as you say, they're coming to watch their mates play football. So be not putting 2 and 2 together and coming up with 27,000.
Dino's back.
Exactly.
Actually, I did mean to say just before we started, obviously I'm avoiding lots and lots of conversations today. The ladies lost 8-0 in the cup. Rosie did have a theory that it was because she wasn't there, but I'm not entirely sure I wanted to put that out there to the girls. They would have beaten her senseless when they see her next time, and rightly so. But the other thing I wanted to mention about the FA Cup, Andy, I think it may be our fault because we did say that we needed a song for the show for the FA Cup, similar to the Pizza Cup song. And we didn't get to do it.
No.
So all I'm saying is we didn't have an FA Cup rubbish song and we did have a Pizza Cup and we're in one and not in the other. So it's not for me to say that's the reason.
You think you may have discovered something?
But you have also never seen me and Batman in the same room together. I'm just saying. Okay. Okay, the first half hour, I know some people have disagreed with me and others and have been putting things up, what game were you watching? But the first half hour was quite bright, I thought. You're nodding. This is an audio. You got.
I wouldn't disagree. I think you're right. I think there was. I don't think we just throughout the game. I don't massively think we disgraced ourselves. There was some strong play. It was a much marked improvement on last weekend. I just think that we didn't take our chances when they were there. We had some real good opportunities, particularly in the first half, to really grab a couple of goals, and there was just no finishing there, which is not unsurprising given the situation that we're in. It's disappointing, but there were some real moments where I thought, we could be all right here.
Yeah. Andy, I'll come to you in a minute because I want to talk about one person in particular, which I know you'll be delighted to. But Will, what were your thoughts for the first sort of half hour or so?
Well, the first half an hour, I thought we had them camped back, and I was thinking, well, this is Bradford. This is probably one of the favourites to go up. So even with all the injuries, I thought this is going to happen. But it's a similar story as I said earlier. It's always the same first half for Sutton. There's so many chances, but it's just not. They can't put them away. And it comes back to bite them in the bum. And the first chance they had, half chance, it was a little ricochet. And you give someone like that an opportunity and they poked it in. But that's just Sutton's luck personified, I think.
Yeah, and Andy, I thought the guy we spoke about before the match, Will, I thought first half hour, so this is it. He's going to take this game by the scruff of the neck. He was doing really, really well. But literally, as Will just said, the goal went in. And the whole team just kind of went, ugh, not again. Again, it sounds like a massive criticism. It's not. It's going to be natural. It's like, why does this keep happening to us? But for that first bit, he did seem very, very bright, did he?
Yeah. I mean, he was. He had our only shot on target for the entire game. Mm-hmm. To be okay, I think I've made no secret of the fact that Will is probably my favourite player in terms of what he can do. That's absolutely fine. But the thing is, when you do pick someone who you really like, or by the same token, you pick somebody you really dislike as a player, you've got to give them credit or criticism when due. And last week, Will was absolutely appalling against Farnborough. He was terrible. He got tackled every time he got the ball. His passing was wayward. It was awful. This week, he was our creative outlet, and almost every attack that we had, whether it ended up with the shot on target or he's skying it as he did a few times, it all started or all involved Will. The guy is a very, very good player, and actually, even though the result didn't go our way, even though we didn't score on performances like that, particularly in the first half, I would be concerned about him being watched by other teams for January. I think actually he's a real handful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean he had that terrible tackle first midway through the first half or early in the first half as well. But yeah, I genuinely thought, oh, hang on a minute, we all are sitting here going, oh, this could be a bad one, and suddenly it could not. And then typical lovely Sutton, as they have done through the years, they went, yeah, you're enjoying this now, aren't you? Have some of that.
Yeah.
The goal. We all watched from a very similar position, apart from Will, who's in the opposite side. It looked miles offside. That I think that's one of those. If the linesman had put the flag up, there would have been very difficult for them to complain. Have we all watched it back? And I have.
I've watched it back, and I think the reason why it wasn't given offside was because it came off one of our players before it got to Cook. And I think that's the only reason. I mean, position-wise, yes, he was clearly offside. There's good 3 or 4 feet in it. But because it touched one of our players, that meant that actually the offside didn't come into play. So I think probably referee got it right.
When I've watched it and sort of tried to freeze frame it, obviously it's a terrible angle because we've only got the one camera, so you can't really see it. But he does look like he's not as far ahead of Louis as we thought he was, but definitely his foot and sort of at least his knee is ahead of him as well. So it's like one of those that, well, that's technically offside, and deflecting off a defender shouldn't really count. It should be if it's a deliberate movement, apparently. But then we're getting into the realms of all VAR and lines and re-watching it, and it's like, do you know what? If we have a crappy goal given against us every now and then, or that, I'd take the crappy goal against us every now and then, because we don't want all that coming to our level. But yeah, you could absolutely see that just the whole side just kind of shoulders dropped. They were like, it's happening again. This ain't right. I know Matt will hate to hear that kind of thing, but you could just see it and you thought, we're not getting back into this. And then the second goal in the second half, deliberate.
I think it was, I don't know, I guess, as you said, I was behind it from a different angle, but where I was sat, I was right behind it, and I've got to hold my hands up. You do have to, say it was a really good goal, whether he meant it or not. But, I mean, when you compare the 2 goals, I'd rather lose like 3 or 4-0 and concede goals like the second than concede another goal, a bit like the goal against Wimbledon, where everyone's like, it's this, it's that, or blah, blah, blah. It was a good goal, but let's just say he didn't mean it.
Yeah, well, what that goal kind of looked to me is when Rob or Will or anyone comes into the box at that angle, why don't they just lump it in towards the back post like that? Because it could get carried in the wind and it could go over everybody and it might go in. But we tend to not do that so often. So much as we're a long ball side, everyone says, and Mark Hughes kept that point on and on and on in his 5-minute interview. I think he said it about 7 times. But Andy, did you see it live or?
Yeah, well, I saw it from a distance because obviously I stand behind the goal at Gallagher Lane end, and actually, look, for me, it was whether it was a cross or a shot, it was unstoppable. I don't think anyone could have got that. It was a really, really well taken shot. I think after the dust had settled from it, I'm thinking, why can't we do that? Rob Milsom used to do things like that, and he hasn't this season. So why can't we?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, again, if you look at it, a dodgy, perhaps offside, defensive lapse coming in from a throw-in, and a wonder goal was what separated the 2 teams.
Yeah. And Claire, what were your thoughts on their second goal?
Yeah, I mean, again, whether it was meant or not is irrelevant. We could call it an absolute worldie, really, if we think it was an intentional thing, couldn't we? But I think Will's right. You'd rather lose to like 3 or 4 of those kind of goals than that first kind of monstrosity. But in the grand scheme of things, the second goal was irrelevant. Like it was done. As the shoulders had dropped, and it was kind of all done, really, which is a shame. But I thought it looked like a pretty good goal from where I was on the curver. Yeah.
I saw one person, I can't remember where I saw it. I did see one person question whether Lewis would have got it because he's that bit taller. It was like, no, because he dipped behind. It wouldn't have made any difference. also a bit annoying to find out that guy's on loan from Palace, which is literally up the road from us. So you know what, we need to call Arsene Wenger and say, get your Patrick Vieira guy to send us some players. Actually, thank you very much. You said you loved us, but obviously it was 2-0. What I found quite interesting was the time wasting at that point.
It's infuriating. So, like, at the beginning of the season, they said that referees were going to be stricter on stuff like this year, and that they were going to really mark it out, and they were going to make sure that it wasn't becoming an issue. And if they took a harder line on it earlier on in the game, then it would stop. It's week in, week out, goalkeepers wasting time. And I'm not saying that we're innocent in this by any stretch of the imagination. We all play the game. But, you know, if you've got a keeper that you've spoken to 3 or 4 times, then book him, because it makes sense to do it earlier on. Because if you wait until like the 85th minute, it's pointless. He's got what he needed out of it. And you've wasted all of our time kind of letting this guy just crack on. It was embarrassing, quite frankly, the refereeing yesterday. I thought they both, like, all of the the linesman was on our side was shocking as well. And I don't tend to kind of blame the officials, but it really was. It was boring to watch. Like, everything that we got spoken to about, they seemed to get away with, which was just, it didn't really make any sense.
Yeah, there were 2 actually. I meant to say this when we talk about their goal. Is Joe was hauled down in the box, absolutely pulled down, and nothing given. All right, okay, you maybe thought that was just a coming together, but then the video I put up saying, "Hang on, how's this a foul?" And I think Donovan literally had his hand on the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper makes a great save from the corner that was being floated in. He knocked it back out. We then get the ball and it's blown up for a foul. It's like, well, hang on, how can that be a foul where Donovan's literally touched him and Joe's been pulled over and it hasn't been a foul? It was a bit odd at times. But yeah, I thought a time wasting. I don't know, Will, if you notice that you're a bit more of a neutral than us. But I especially like the fact their fans wouldn't give the ball back. At 2-0 down against Little Sutton, the Bradford fans were keeping the ball.
Well, overall, I think officiating this year especially has been across just maybe Championship, League One, League Two. Without VAR, maybe they need it. But it's been questionable, and you know, at the end he did book Verdane Oliver for heading it back into the crowd. I noticed that was cheeky, but it's like you can't book him, but then let all the other stuff go. You can't just pick and choose when you're gonna follow the rules. But I guess it's the thing that every team does. You know, when Sutton are winning, they'll do it. Everyone will do it. So it's kind of like it's annoying when it happens to you, but when you're winning, you kind of just got to be like, turn the light down to it.
Yeah, I mean, Matt did say, I can't remember which game it was, he did say in his interview that there's nothing that we wouldn't have done on some time wasting. But it was just obvious. And as I say, it's a bit funny that they're 2-0 up. We didn't look like we were going to score if we were playing for another 2 weeks. And there's still time wasting. Like,
I've just talking about all the potential fouls and stuff in the game. There was the one on, I've just remembered, Wilson going up against Songo'o. It was like the 1-on-1 where the ball's gone over the top. They're in the box, and it looked like he'd yanked Wilson down. Anywhere else on the pitch, it's a foul, but it's in the box, so it's kind of like the ref doesn't give it. So
was that the one where he was trying to pretend he had a head injury?
No, that was another one. Same guy. That was at the other end. Maybe he's just friends with the ref. Let's say that.
Yeah, there were some difficult ones, and obviously, well, again, we're all on a similar side, but it got so bad that Frakey was silent. It was like there's something really bad here. Yeah, it's gone all the way through to just utter.
There was a lot of theatrical yesterday from them, and some of it was just like, I find it embarrassing. Like, if you've gone down and there's no one remotely near you, or you've gone down clutching your head when, again, there was nowhere remotely, like, it's embarrassing. Like, I just don't know where they get the gall to do it, and then just kind of stand up and just like saunter off as if it's all right.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
No,
yeah.
grow up.
Then I don't know if you noticed, Andy, towards the end, after the fans had held the ball for a little while, he went and spoke to Jack about hurrying up to take a goal kick. Just hang on a second. You leave their guys hold the ball for 2 minutes, and then as soon as we get it back, you're like, come on, hurry up.
It's just, I mean, I always say that it's very, very rare for officiating to actually affect the result. And, again, put it in perspective, the officiating yesterday did not affect the result. We could have had the best referee in the land. It still probably would have been 2-0. Fair enough. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, it's ruined it as a spectacle. I can actually live with a defeat if the match is actually worth watching. And it wasn't a great match in that respect because they just, again, it was just the officials were just kind of not showing, in the words, the great works of Frankie, show some consistency, mate. And, they didn't really. And again, it's fine. If you lose and the officials have been consistent across the board, even better. But, again, just some of it was just silly.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a problem scoring goals. Obviously, I don't think there's any massive solution. I've said on here a couple of times that even if we got someone in who suddenly started banging in loads and loads of goals, we're going to have them for 6 months tops because they'll be moved on pretty soon. Anyone listening, if you've got the answer, please do send it to Matt. I'm sure he'll be delighted to hear your thoughts. But we are going to have to. We'll finish with the game, but have some Player of the Day nominations. So I will come back to you all in a second to have a little think. It's going to be one each, including me today, so that's annoying. I mean, that's good, but here we go.
Now watch me do my dance. I'm the player of the day.
Andy's dancing. He can go first.
Oh, you just make it easy for me. Will Randall. Simple.
Okay, fair enough. And Claire, go on. You can go next.
Rob Milson.
Excellent. We didn't even talk about his goal line clearance.
I just think he's amazing. And I've said this on the podcast several times this season. I'm just putting it out there. Rob, just constantly, Mr. Consistent.
If Rob had played terrible for 89 minutes, he'd still be on Player of the Day for that absolutely worldy goal line clearance.
Yeah.
I mean, what was quite funny is the whole thing was in slow motion. And the ball was just trickling towards the line, and you're saying, someone's got to get that. Oh, it's Rob. Here we go. 298 years of age. Come on, Rob. Come on. You can get there. But yeah, he got there. Brilliant. Excellent. And love it. And Will, who are you going for?
I'm going to go for Adam Lovett in the middle.
Excellent. I'm going to tell you the names I've written down because I knew this would happen. I've written down Adam, Rob, and Will. Luckily, I just chucked in the old standby that everyone chucks in Easty as well, because huffing and puffing and trying. I mean, it's not. I know you've commented on it and said it earlier, Andy. It's not his fault. He's not an attacking midfielder. He's never going to be a free-flowing goal-scoring midfielder.
Actually, that's a really good point. Is that a lot of people are judging? The strikers aren't scoring goals. Well, all the 5 fit strikers we had, or available strikers we had, played yesterday. None of them looked like scoring. Okay, and it wasn't just the fact that they didn't look like scoring. There's got to be something else a bit deeper than that, and it is we don't have any creative midfielders available. The 2 creative ones we've got are out injured, and that's an issue. And if they're not getting the service or the creativity from those players, it's going to be much harder for them to score.
Yeah, and there isn't. I can't have a point that we've not made. Eastie's been on a yellow card for about 5-6 weeks. I don't know, maybe even longer. 1 yellow card away from suspension, and we've got no one else to come in. We've got other players who may be sitting there thinking, well, I've got to just hold back a little bit because if I get injured, who's going to play? There's no one else to take my place. So you've got to wonder, I'm not saying they're holding back deliberately or anything, but there's going to be a certain element of, well, hang on a minute, I can't really take these chances here. If I overstretch for that could be my hammy gone and I'm out for 5 weeks and we're going to be in more trouble.
I mean, that is one of the positives you can take from yesterday is that both Eastie and Lewis didn't get booked, so they're not on a ban for next weekend. So there are small little things we can take.
No injuries as well.
No injuries,
No injuries.
and the results at the bottom of the table went our way. So all good things come in threes. Or is it bad things that come in threes? I don't remember.
I did say to Andy before the game that if Eastie had got booked, it wouldn't have been the end of the world, because then we could have had Rob in the middle and Sam at left back, and then we could have got it out of the way. However, I did also say that when he got kicked in the head, that he should have just given someone a little slap as he walked off, just to get the yellow card, get the booking out of the way as well. But maybe his head wasn't quite there, because I know that was painful, because he'd said he's on really strong painkillers. So, but yep, okay, I'll add them all to the poll. But luckily, I did add that fourth name on there, because I was like, I bet you I'll give everyone the choice, and they got something else. Now, I was going to do a little segment, and I can't. For the last few weeks, I've been trying to think of it, of kind of an opinion from the people about what's going on in the wide world, and I can't quite think of a name for it. Just sort of talking about other things going on in football, and the sort of talk of what's going on. But the only thing I can really talk about today is the video that's gone of our stewards. So, Claire, you've got two heads on here, so I know if you want to drop out of the conversation, I absolutely understand, because you've got company head on as well. So I'm not going to ask you to make any comment unless you feel like you want to. We use the same firm that Wimbledon use, and Wimbledon have just got rid of them because they're terrible and they're aggressive. I do have to admit, when I went to the Wimbledon match and saw them in their whole little SWAT team outfits, I was like, oh my God, what's all this about? They seemed fine with us, or where I was anyway. I know there's other issues. But yeah, Wimbledon have just got rid of them, and yet our stewards are always getting praised by away teams. We've kind of seen a clip of why, and I've actually got no problem with the stewards making their lives easier, because at the end of the day, they're employees, they're not fans of Sutton. It's not volunteers doing this anymore. Some of them won't even be football fans. I know that's a shock to people. Some of them will just be there for the money. And if they want to make their lives easier by interacting and playing along with the away fans, I don't actually have a huge problem with it. The song that he chose to sing of Sutton getting battered everywhere we go when we're at home is a bit strong. But Andy, have you seen it? What were your
thoughts? I've seen the video, and actually, I mean, it reminds me, there was something I saw. I was walking through Collingwood Rec before we played Tranmere, and it was at the same time as the Tranmere coach turned up, and the stewards outside. So there's a whole a throng of Tranmere supporters, and the stewards outside were like, really, really polite and welcoming. Straight away, off the bat, before the supporters even got into the ground, they've given those away supporters a really positive image. Now, for me, you've got us using the same company as Wimbledon, or did until they sacked them, and our stewards seem to be much more, I wouldn't necessarily say proactive, but I'd say much more welcoming, much more out to kind of generate a more positive atmosphere. Okay, it's the same company. The company would have told them the same things. The only variable that's different is the people at our end and the people at AFC Wimbledon's end. So actually, for me, I think this is a real credit to those behind the scenes at Sutton for kind of instructing and encouraging that really positive approach and actually make it feel more like the family-friendly club that we all know Sutton is. AFC Wimbledon, I think, have got their other issues. There's a lot of, from what I hear, there's a lot of internal arguments there. The Dons Trust is having another election, and there's a lot of infighting going on. So as behind the scenes, they're not a happy club. They're not a unified club. Behind the scenes, we are. And I think actually the stewards are a manifestation of that. So I think full credit to Sutton.
Yeah. Will, did you want to weigh in with both sides of this conversation?
I mean, I was at the Wimbledon Leyton Orient game, which is what kind of, I think it was the final nail in the coffin for the whole steward situation. I've always seen stuff on Twitter about our stewards, and there's a photo of one of them dressed up, and he's all in black, and it looks very intimidating. But I don't necessarily hear what was going on, whereas the Leyton Orient game, there was a flare thrown on. Leyton Orient 2-0 down. You snuck it in. You may as well use it. I think that's what the mindset was, and it all kicked off. But again, I'm not too sure on what's going on. But Andy is completely right. There is constant problems going on at Wimbledon, and it's just another thing that needed to get sorted out a long time ago. Because as soon as there's stewards are there for your safety. The only reason they should get involved is if, someone is causing a problem. And as soon as there was a problem with that, it should have been sorted. It wasn't, and now look what's happened. And it may have a knock-on effect for Sutton, because maybe Sutton are like, oh, okay, we might need to sort this out as well, because we don't want to look bad. But if there's no problem because of what Sutton are doing behind the scenes, then it's more or less like a spanner in the works, I think, for the company, not the football club, the company itself.
Yeah, I mean, the Sutton stewards have been seeing praise of them on Twitter for the whole of last season as well. I mean, obviously Sutton, Gander Green Lane has always been quiet. It just is. I mean, I was speaking to Jenny yesterday, and she made a very good point that all the clappers you hear are in the main stand. She goes, there's only about 11 of them, but you can hear them because they're covered. And where we are isn't covered. Claire, if you could feed that back. But I'm actually looking at that steward, and all right, I know the Sutton get battered everywhere they go thing wasn't the best, but he's there and he's encouraging and everything. I'm like, get him down our end. Let him start the chanting and get our lot started and whipped up and everything. Why can't we have that? Whereas everyone I've spoken to on the stewards that are friendly, I mean, the one who took the pee out of me yesterday for insisting on queuing to use my right gate, I don't know, but she was like, come on over to this. Oh, it's you. You're that guy who waits for that gate, aren't you? Excuse me? But yeah, I'm in two minds. I didn't think it was a great look as a club that we're going, isn't this wonderful? But I'm not that bothered if it gives the stewards an easier life. And apparently some of the Bradford fans are going, there were a couple of ejections and there were some problems. And when they told them, people, no, that's not, you need to cut that out. People did cut it out because of the interaction. So again, that kind of proves is positive and all the rest of it. But I wasn't sure.
I would say, I mean, I echo what Andy says. We have a really great ground safety team, and they take things really seriously, and they do a really good job. And they look after us from the control room and do things behind the scenes that I guess people don't necessarily witness. With my SLO hat on, I will say that I have had quite a few messages about it today. Not so much objections to it happening, more so that it was, put onto social media. I think people understand, much like some of you have said, that, stewards do things to make their lives easier and to get on board with the fans that are in front of them. But perhaps a retweet wasn't the wisest thing, but I will be feeding back all of the comments that I've had today, because I have had quite a few people message me.
Okay, fair enough. We'll leave it there.
Do we seem to have a problem with every time we copy what AFC Wimbledon do, something goes wrong? So you've got stewards, you've got the whole ticket fiasco from last year. It was the same company that AFC Wimbledon used. It's like, are we not learning our lesson here?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't do everything they do, and we're a much happier place to be, Andy. So,
exactly. Yeah. It's the things we don't do that they do where it goes right, isn't it?
Right. I'm going to do something that I don't normally do because I don't normally remember. But I recorded an interview with Martin Copus a couple of weeks ago, and it's going to come out on Wednesday. And one of the things he said that is kind of a bit odd at Sutton is he said, in the 5 years I've been on the board, I don't remember us voting on anything. It's just usually everyone just agrees and goes, okay, yep, we'll all do that. And it's kind of all by just, we've decided this is what we're all going to do. And he said, I don't really remember any time where we've had to go, people have completely different opinions. And that kind of is what you were saying earlier, Andy, where there's problems elsewhere. We don't really have that at Sutton. No. It just kind of just...
I think that's the same at kind of senior management meetings. We have discussions about things and people give their opinions, but generally, there's never any kind of for or against. It's very much like we're all in agreement when a decision is then passed. So everyone's doing everything for the greater good, as they say in Hotbus.
So what you're saying is we can blame anyone on that management team for the fact that the tent went up on the hottest November Day.
I've already told you that if you have objections about that, you can raise them with one Ed Marsh. There you go.
I did
Told
find
you
it.
this.
It was, and I didn't actually see
Also,
your
yeah,
response.
and if you're going to send me photos, Mike, complaining that it is hot inside somewhere that you are, take your coat off first, all right? Because you won't feel the benefit when you go outside. And no wonder you were warm.
The funny thing is, I didn't actually see that until after later when I got onto the terrace and I did my little video of it's the 12th of November, it's baking hot, and I had taken my coat off, and then I looked and went, damn it, that's going to look really stupid now, isn't it? So, but never mind. Okay. We don't like Mike looking silly. That's not what this show's about. Right, so I spoke earlier to Thomas from the All Dale Aren't We podcast. Or Tom, I kept calling him Thomas, but he said it was Tom after the thing. So, but we, how do we feel about the game? So if I start with you, Will, is it too early to go with the 6 pointers? I don't know. Is it too early?
Yeah, I think so. I think, the way that Matt approaches games is very, it's very level-headed, and it's difficult from a media point of view because it's always, we just focus on the next game. Like one of the guys asked him after the game yesterday, he was like, "Oh, Rochdale's a big one." And Matt just went, "Every game's a big one," and it was kind of like "Yeah, there you go. That showed you. Don't ask those questions." So I think if you want to call it a 6-pointer, of course, because maybe every League Two fan may say these are the two teams that will end up at the bottom, but I think it's just another game that Sutton need to get through while the injury storm, like the injury cloud, is still looming. Which is sort of the case. Don't get a yellow, don't get an injury, and just don't get humiliated. I think that's the three things I'd say you need to look out for.
Excellent. Andy?
No, it's not a 6-pointer. I don't think there are any 6-pointers at this stage of the season. We don't see those until kind of, your Marches and your Aprils. I don't think it's a 6-pointer. I just think it's a case of we just need to. It doesn't matter who we play. We just got to weather the storm. And it didn't matter if it was Bradford, who was in really good form, or if it's Rochdale, who are in not as good form, or who are on paper a weaker team. You can only play against the team that you've got in front of you, and they can only, more importantly, in our case, they can only play against the team that they've got in front of them. And we know we've got a weakened side. It's there's no shying away from that. So it's just a case of just making sure that we don't do anything silly. See if we can get a goal. It might be possible. You never know. And just come away with even a steadying 0-0 draw will be absolutely fine at this stage. Because remember, we've only got one game after that before we go away to Carlisle in December. And that's the Papa John's Trophy. It's our last league game for 2 weeks. It gives us a bit of breathing space. It allows time for any players to have any niggles to get better. It gives more space for your people like Harry potentially to do a lot more training and be more involved with the squad, which will have a much more positive effect on the others, particularly the younger players, because it's actually having those training with you who are injured but on the way back can give a real kind of burst of energy that's been missing. So no, I don't think it's a 6-pointer at all. I just think let's go there, see what we can do, see if we can hold the game.
Excellent. Claire?
I think Andy's hit the nail on the head, really. I just, there's no, let's not think about 6-pointers just yet. Let's, potentially get a 3-point and then worry about the second half of it. But yeah, we just need to hold our own for a bit. It would be great to come away with 3 points, but I'd settle for a draw going into it. I mean, it's a week out. We're all forgetting the big game of the week is the Surrey Senior Cup tomorrow as well, quite frankly.
Tomorrow, yes. There's also comms on Mixlr, I heard today. So big time. Well, Tom wasn't confident at all. He was absolutely.
That's what we like to hear.
When I sort of said, "Oh, well, you can't have scored less goals than us. We've only scored 16." He went, "Yeah, it's 13." Okay, lovely. But yeah, he felt that our games last year we absolutely dominated. He didn't actually see the winning goal, their winning goal at their place. because we pulled it back to 2-2 and he was like, right, I see, I've had enough, and he stomped off. I was like, oh, you missed our boys going, we can do this, let's attack. Oh, shit. But yeah, he wasn't very confident at all. So hopefully we'll go with his analysis, not you lot. You lot gave the wrong answer. So, but Will, I wanted to just ask you, because me and Andy had a little chat before the match yesterday about Matt's quite detailed update on injuries, because people were whinging about not being told, although Matt mentions it every single week.
Mm-hmm.
From the media side, what is it like when he's kind of been relatively cagey on who's available and who's going to come back? Because we kind of know why, but is it you'd rather him pin down and go, this person can be back on this date, or are you happy with it?
Well, I think it's hard because, of course, it's whatever he wants to do about it. But I think the way he approaches it is fine from my point of view, from the media side, because he's being honest, and he's giving like times, so he's not just saying, Harry's blah blah blah, he'll be back. We don't know when. He's saying, 3 to 4 weeks for this player. This player maybe January. So I now know like the certain, more finer details about certain players. But I don't know why people are saying that he's not updating, because he does. Like when you ask him, if you were to just ask him now and phone him up, he'd be like, yeah, well, this player's back at this time. So I don't know where that's come from. But in terms of a media point of view, I think the way he approached it's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine.
Claire, do you want to jump in on that? Do you think you're not informed?
No, but I always think that when it comes to people saying they're not informed about stuff, it's how you get your media, isn't it? So I think we're really, I think back to the days when we didn't really have any media or any information, or you'd phone club call to get your updates at the end of the evening or whatever. And now there's so much out there, and it's whether or not you choose to absorb that information. So it's there on Twitter, it's there on Facebook. If you sign up to the newsletter, it's there in your inbox. It's just whether or not you're actually going looking for the information. If you read the program, there's stuff in there as well. So I don't understand how people can say that they don't get told stuff, because, compared to where we were, quite a fair few years back, like our news area of the club is absolutely saturated with all of the latest information. So I think we're really lucky in that sense. And Will's right. Like Matt is very approachable. If you wanted to have a chat with him and ask him the question that you think you don't know the answer to, then he's more than happy to talk to people. Probably not yesterday after yesterday's game, I would imagine, or last weekend. But most of the time, just wander up to him and have a chat. We're very lucky in that sense. I do think that as a club, we're very lucky in that sense. And you found this, Mike, doing this podcast, that if you want to talk to somebody at our club, then you walk up to them and you can have a conversation with them, whether that's Matt, whether that's Bruce, whether that's Adrian, any of the board, they're there. They were more than happy to give people their time. So I do think, if you've got questions that you want the answers to, then ask people, or that's what I'm here for. Come and ask me, and I will tell you if I know, or I'll point you in the right direction.
Well, it's two things on that. One is it links into the nice conversation I had with Tony just a couple of days ago. So listen to that one. That's another little plug. And that was a very fair and balanced and reasonable answer of how people get their media. I wasn't expecting a nice...
Sorry, you can spot the girl that works in politics,
Andy,
can't you?
come on. Andy, come on.
What, you want me to speak? Look, to be honest, it doesn't matter how long someone's out for. It doesn't matter if I know. I'm just a supporter. I don't pick the team. If Matt chose not to say how long a player's out for, I couldn't care less. It's who gets picked at 2:15 and gets announced. I don't know these people's obsession with like having to know absolutely everything, and then somebody hears a bit of gossip and then alludes to it on a forum or on social media. It doesn't matter. It's not going to make any difference to what team comes out and what team plays. So as far as I'm concerned, they can sit away and cry in a corner if they haven't been told the exact date that a player is going to come back. I don't give a stuff.
There you go.
See, I picked it up on the right order there, didn't I?
I was going to say that. I was going to say
Yeah. I wonder who's going to go on the sound clip today. Anyway,
You can guess I'm the one with no official connection to the club.
me neither. Thank you very much. Things will turn. I did say, and I firmly believe, when everyone says things even themselves out over the season, we're going to have a cracking second half of the season.
Yeah.
For everything to turn our way for the second half of the season, we're going to have an amazing second half of the season. No injuries. We're going to have referees' decisions given in our favour. All the 50-50s going to go in our favour, and all those balls that just slightly mishit are going to be perfect from now on. This is what I believe, and I'm ending now before any of you can burst that bubble. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks everyone for listening. Obviously, I'm on all the social medias. I've still no idea if this has gone out live or not, but I'm on all the social medias at Sutton Podcast with different, varying skill sets. In fact, I'm rubbish on all of them. Just different levels of rubbish is what it is. Take care, and we'll see you all soon. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Mike.
See ya.
Bye.